Um, this, as you all are aware, is our third session of the day. And I would like, first of all, to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of the forum and to moderate this much anticipated discussion on the 2020 property market trends and outlook. We are privileged to have a lineup of 4 distinguished panelists who will share their thoughts and experiences in this 70-minute forum where we will discuss on the state of the Malaysian property market and its challenges today and beyond. I do not think our panelists need much of an introduction. You may, of course, refer to their full CVs in your seminar pack. Please, however, allow me to briefly introduce each and every one of them. Our first panelist is Executive Chairman of Area Management Singhe Berhad, who holds 40 years of experience in the property scene and interest on the industrial sector. He is also known as the REIT guru in the country. Please welcome Dato Stewart LaBrooy. Our second panel member, who has a new hairstyle, has been active in the property industry since 1986 and has been active in the corporate agency and investment sales. He is the Managing Director of Knight Frank Malaysia. Please welcome Mr. Sarkunan Subramaniam. Nama glamour dia Saki. And I'm told if we call him that, he will give us a 30% discount on his fees. The third panelist is an accountant by training, but have taken the path of a real estate agent for more than 20 years. He is Deputy President of the Malaysian Institute of Professional Estate Agents and Consultants and the Executive Director of Metro Home Realty Berhad. Please welcome Mr. Chi Kok Nong. And our last but certainly not least member this afternoon is the founder and CEO of Zerin Properties, as well as a prominent player in the corporate real estate within the office, retail, industrial, and hospitality sectors. He is Previndran Singhe, fondly known as Previn in the real estate industry. Now, on the topic at hand, this session is entitled 2020 Property Market Trends and Outlook, which will involve thoughts and views on the various sectors within the property market, i.e., the residential, commercial, and industrial sectors. With that array of panelists I have here with me, I believe we'll be able to cover issues such as how have the sectors been for the year thus far? What can we expect to happen by year's end? And how has foreign interest in the market changed, if any? And where is the market heading with COVID-19 still on our heels? Just to quickly recap on how this session will go, each panelist will be given not more than 8 minutes to present his views, followed by a Q&A session, which I hope the floor will have a lot of questions of about 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll finish with a quick wrap-up at the end. Without further delay, I now call Dato LaBrooy to present his views.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're recovered from lunch. So it was a tough session to take when you come back from a meal. I'd just like to relate to you a little message my son sent me the other day, a bit of a quiz. And he told me, Dad, can you name me which person actually drives the change of Industry 4.0 in the organization? Is it the CEO? Is it CFO or is it COVID-19? And we all know the answer for that. COVID-19 has changed the entire landscape of our entire lives and will probably remain a force to deal with for the next 24 months. I don't see this thing going away in a great hurry. And as real estate players, we have to be very prepared and start to examine our strategies very carefully on how we move forward. I'm here to talk a little about the industrial space, but let me talk a little bit about some of the factors that are influencing this new normal we're in. Let me relate to some of the new normals we're talking about. The first thing, there's going to be a drift away from free trade to far more protectionism. You can see this happening in America. This may reflect itself in higher prices, and also it could create enormous opportunities for Malaysia in the fact that people are looking for second sources out of China. It may drive industries here, and for real estate people, we must be prepared. It's a very important thing because there's a lot of opportunities arising. Number two, buying habits are going to change. How many of you were buying stuff online during the lockdown? I'm sure all of you were. Otherwise, you couldn't get anything into your homes. So people that never used e-commerce before have now become addicted. And I think e-commerce had a spike of nearly 40% growth in the first 3 months of the lockdown. They had their own problems as well. Their supply chain was badly damaged. The fact that imports was frozen. China stopped sending stuff across. But they still managed to get product through. But all of us started doing all kinds of crazy things. We're buying vegetables online. We now have meat suppliers online. And lo and behold, I have 3 people trying to sell me whiskey at very reduced prices online. I'll share that with Saki as well. I think you probably want to know my new supplier. It's very cheap. E-learning and video conferencing took center stage in our lives. Zoom was, something that you did in your car when you're accelerating fast. No one heard of Zoom. Microsoft Teams, what's that? And suddenly people were forced to adapt to a new way of communication. And guess what? It's here to stay. People are actually finding that having webinars, a very effective way of actually getting messages across to much wider audiences. I mean, here we probably have a set number of people listening today. I'm not sure if this is on a webinar, but if it was, you probably have 1,000 people looking in today to listen to what was being said. You can reach a far larger audience at very, very low cost. It's changing the way we do business. And this can also apply to your own industry, okay? Schools, education. It's been a huge impact. Your kids had to go learning online, right? Guess what? The schools were not prepared to handle e-learning. But again, a brand new set of technologies were forced upon us by COVID-19. Believe me, as a result of all this, the consumer will still remain cautious long after the virus is gone. Global companies have learned this lesson of centralizing their supply chains. They've learned that by centralizing it through just one supplier in China, they were very badly compromised in terms of actually keeping their businesses going. But whatever said and done, global supply will still exceed worldwide demand over time. On the other hand, in the finance industry, the banks that don't embrace fintech will go out of business. They're coming under tremendous stress now to try and change the way they do things. I went to buy a car a year ago, and I had to sign 27 pieces of paper. Still. And I said, come on, we got all this modern, 27 pieces of paper I had to sign. Front, back, side, all over the place. I think you go through this every time. We're not really that up to date. Fintech is taking off, but I think the younger players are showing the banks a clean pair of heels. Mobile banking has become the norm. People do not carry money in their wallets anymore. Big, big physical change. When can we buy properties online and pay for them online? Pay your deposits online. Not even go and see a real estate agent. Sign your S&Ps online. It's all coming. And it's revolutionizing the industry you're all in today. If you don't embrace it and deal with it, you'll be left, on the scrap heap. The tourism and airline industry have been very badly impacted. That's something that we're all very well aware of. I don't know next year will there be an airline to fly to Europe in, and how much it'll cost. I got to think, go back to the bad old days. I want to get an economy ticket to UK, it probably cost you 10 grand, because there won't be that many planes in the air. Tourism, big market for Malaysia, has also been very badly damaged. Hotels, tour guides, all our places of tourist interest. But I would say that domestic tourism seems to have taken up that slack. don't forget, what's happened is not just in Malaysia. This is a global phenomenon. Malaysia's GDP in second quarter dropped 17%. At the global financial crisis in 1998, it only dropped 7% in the second quarter. And we all know what happened. I think some of you have lived to the AFC 1989, 99. It was very ugly. Maybank shares went from $12 to $2.50. You know, banks are calling in their loans as quickly as they can. But in those days, the banks were very badly capitalized. We're in a much stronger position today. But having said that, you know, there's an infinite amount of stimulus that the government can do. It's very important we all get back to work. One thing about the Malaysians, they do have an indomitable spirit. And I think the future of the real estate industry will come back. But it'll be a very different industry when we go back to it. And all of you here have to be prepared for that. And I'm sure that you'll hear other aspects of the housing. I'm not going to give you any statistics. All I can say is that as far as the segment goes, the industrial sector is absolutely booming. Okay? But it's not what a lot of people think it is. It is not the small semi-D section that's booming or the terrace factories. It's people that can provide 20 acres, 30 acres, 50-acre sites for very large organizations to relocate or consolidate their businesses. IKEA has just put in $700 million to put a distribution center in Northport. If any of you have time to go, do visit it. It'll blow your mind. The factory height's 40 meters. The racks go up 40 meters in the sky. It's fully automated. That's the future where we're heading to. And as we get more product like this in the market, we can become leaders in global distribution if we did play our part right. And that's why I'm very excited about the whole industry, because it's very technology-led right now. And we're going to bring a lot of great industries into Malaysia and get Malaysians a lot of great new jobs. We should give them much better incomes, which they can use to buy your houses and your offices. And businesses will start to come back. But it's going to take time. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, we should spend our time getting prepared. I think, Tan Sri, I've used up my time.
1 more minute.
1 more minute. What can I add? Let me see what I have here, some little nuggets to sort of share with you. Okay, especially on the economy, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the Malaysia's economy. Our contraction has been the worst in the entire history of Malaysia this last quarter, at 17.2%. It took the entire industry took the whole financial markets by surprise. It wasn't expected. But we think it's going to come back. They say it's slowly picking up again. But I don't think we're seeing a V-shaped recovery at the moment. It's going to be an L-shaped recovery. We're going to be bouncing along at the bottom for about another 2 years. So there won't be any great, my view is, that's my view, okay? I think that you look at what happened in 98, it took nearly 5 years to get back to where we were in 1998, before the crash. It took a long time to heal. We don't have the resilience of the big Western economies. We're very commodity-led. And thankfully, we have a fairly large manufacturing base. If that expands, it'll probably help mitigate a lot of the other places. But what Malaysia does lack right now, as far as industrial goes, is that we haven't got, or the state governments or the federal government has not looked at creating the ecosystem for bringing in big industries. There are no big industrial estates available for foreigners to come and take positions in. It's very fractured, it's very small, and there's no big picture story. We need to get more people involved. The GLCs can play a big role in this. I'm working with a few of them to get them to identify much larger tracts of land to open up for foreign investment and foreign companies to come and set up their operations here. Selangor has some great people, very big knowledge market. People like to locate in Selangor, except people are not located in Selangor because there's been no available land for people to move to. But you are now seeing the big companies like Hatilega putting a hands up for a 100-acre site, automating their factories. The glove market's going to expand very rapidly in this country. So there's a lot of new industries that are coming in. Older industries are expanding, and fractured industries are consolidating. So you find logistics moving from small little warehouses into much larger facilities. Because they always complain about the rent. To me, I says, no, the big expense in your business is not rent, it's labor. 60 to 70% of your cost in logistics is labor cost. And now with the constriction on labor coming in, they're going to have to automate. And if they automate, there's a huge opportunity for new product to come into the market. It all ties in very nicely. So I'm excited to hear what my colleagues are going to say about the other sectors. But for myself, I think that the entire industrial space is an exciting space to be in right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I now invite Saki?
Thank you, Tan Sri. I really haven't prepared a 8-minute talk, but I just got a few thoughts that I want to share. The question we're going to ask ourselves is this a new norm permanent, or is it a temporary new norm? I think, look at all of you here. I think there's about 200 over people here. Am I right? And when was the last you attended a seminar? Maybe pre-COVID? Why did you all want to come back here and meet more people? Because at the end of the day, I believe humans need to interact. We need to be together. So is this things that are happening in terms of social distancing, in terms of limiting number of participants, is that going to be a permanent feature? So that's a question that I can't answer this question, but we all have to think about it. But things are certainly changing. But whether it changes for a long while, we don't know. One thing I know for sure, companies are not making decisions for the long term. Every decision is on a short-term decision. In fact, the kind of lease renewals now we do is short-term, 1 year, 2 year. No one's taking a 5-year lease. No one is really wanting to take a long-term lease. And why is that? Because everyone is uncertain. Everyone is wondering what's going to happen next, you know. And this thing called work from home, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm glad that it has actually pushed a lot of us to go into technology and go into discovering, like what Dato said, what is Microsoft Teams, what is Zoom. Technology is the way it's going, but we have been pushed quickly into embracing all of this. Work from home, I think, is definitely going to be a long-term trend, but eventually I think that the people want to come together. Office space will change. I think office space will become a much more of a collaborative space. See, prior to COVID, my desk occupancy ratio, even in my office, was about 75%. When it came to when offices were open again, of course we had Team A, Team B. Desk occupancy was down to about 20%. You know, and now that we don't have a Team A, Team B, and anyone can come to the office if they want to come for office. They are not encouraged to come to office, but they can stay at home. My desk occupancy ratio now is about 40%. So I'm just thinking to myself, okay, I've got that much of space. Do I really need that much of space now if this is going to be a new norm, temporary, long term? Actually, that is very difficult to say. But whatever, I believe decisions are really going to be made sometime around mid next year, because people are now just waiting, seeing what's going to happen. But around middle of next year, when things are more certain, whether at all there's going to be a vaccine for COVID, but whatever said and done, people will make their decisions. Similarly, like me, I might decide to cut my space middle of next year once I realize how is the new norm going to be. But whatever said and done, I wonder whether people will actually reduce space because as well, because whilst we were all going towards smaller space per person, like some companies were doing like 60, 70 square foot per person, that's going to increase because of social distancing. So there is also the other push, whether people will actually, reduce the number of space. So this is a kind of things. And I'm also seeing a lot of people now looking at decentralized office space. I'm seeing people looking for second space because they want to have somewhere strategic so that they can spread their risk. That's also happening. I'm also looking at certain oil and gas companies, whatever now, they're looking at halving their number of space and doing studies now how they can halve the number of space. I'm also seeing the growth of something we haven't seen much, sublet space. No, people wanting to sublet. And the agents now going around specializing in sublet space. Space already rented, companies want to cut, but they cannot because the lease is not flexible, so they want to sublet, and that area is also growing. It's a new area of growth. But what is so funny is that although it's fitted out office space, the rents doesn't vary too much from market rent, whether it is fitted or not fitted. That's the things that are happening. So, Tansi, I will stop at that. Maybe we can carry on with the others. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shaki. Now, can I invite our third panelist for his take?
And good afternoon. Thanks, KSI, for inviting me. I will touch on residential market because in my whole life I was involved in retail residential market, which affecting every one of us. A bit negative. Basically, for me, year 2020 is over already. There's nothing much we can see. Okay, our worst case scenario haven't come yet because of loan moratorium. Every one of us are very happy because we do not need to pay our installment. The number is 93% of the people choose loan moratorium. Only 7% of them continue paying the installment. I talked to my banker friend. They told me, the moment you choose loan moratorium, you go back to get a loan, they assume that you are in trouble first. You have to prove the other way. Okay? So that is how the situation, basically a bank want to do the 7% of the business now. Okay? Unless you go back to your old banker, they know you very well. Okay? If you cross other bank, let's say I'm a public bank client, I go to Hong Leong Bank, practically very difficult. Because the bank policy is very simple. I want to look at your secrets. I want to see 0 and 1 in your secrets record. For the last 6 months, I don't able to see anything, not available. Okay, this is one area that we have looked into it. The other area is that Bank Negara recently announced they have done a survey with 2 million borrowers, be it housing loan or car loan. They call up you, text you, email to you. 1.1 million people have replied. Out of the 1.1 million replied, 300,000 of them seek for additional moratorium or assistance. So we have potentially 300,000 people having problem or loan defaulting. So for me, that will be coming, a real challenge will be only starting next month. Of course, we won't see the big number of auctions will come immediately. I think it will come maybe after Chinese New Year. The real challenge will be then, okay? So by then, the bank come in, all these things, ding dong, you look into second half of next year, 2021. A bit negative, Again, our overhang, remember, I just browsed through the NAPIC yesterday. They only published the quarter 1 2020. Big number of overhang again, okay? The top 5 of them are Johor, Perak, Selangor, Penang, and Wilayah Persekutuan. Residential, 20,000 unit. For service apartment, 15,000 unit. Both these two add together, 35,000 unit. Johor have 12,000 service apartment overhang. I think you all know the overhang definition, right? After completed 9 months, still unsold. But the government are looking into only one angle, basically the developer side. For us, as the people in the market, we look into overhang, including the secondary market. So when the government proposed that vacancy tax, my idea is that we should look into vacancy rate first. In Australia, let's say example, a suburb, you know very well what is the vacancy rate of that area. We should be able to track that for now. Example, how to track it? TNB usage, very simple. If that unit have not meet the minimum usage, basically there's no occupancy there. You take away another 20% of it. Basically that unit is vacant. The unit vacant is go to you and me. We are keeping the unit. If we cannot afford to pay, it will affect the entire industry. Don't talk about vacancy tax first. Talk about vacancy rate. Okay, let us work on that first. Then only you talk about vacancy tax. Okay, no point you tax a developer. Developer only contribute 30,000 units. Whereas the market we have 6.6 million houses based on last year data. So out of the 6.6 thousand data, 340,000, 350,000, 5% being transacted only. But what is the vacancy rate? Nobody know. Maybe you and I have 3 houses, we only stay 1. The other 2 units vacant. What's the point? Again, I want to touch a little bit about foreign buyer. I also am M2H agent. I'm one of the 200 of it. Okay. Suddenly, the government announced cancel the MM2H program. All our clients wasted. We spent the same day. Last year I was in Hong Kong giving a talk, MM2H talk. That today I'm here, and all our effort last year all go down to the drain. I think the government shouldn't do that. Even though you want to change the policy, continue, less people continue. Then you come out with a new policy. Cannot stop the program just like that. This 200 agent, what do you want them to do in this difficult time? They should be also encouraged to continue to do the business. You get what I mean? So I was told, because my brother is the Secretary General of MM2H Association, okay? We have 5,000 cases being returned. They don't dare to reject you. They just give you back the file, ask you to take back. Where got such thing that government collected your file, all based on checklist? If without a checklist, you cannot submit one. Then they give you a number. Now they tell you that I return to you, ask you to keep the file. So now everybody rush to Sabah and Sarawak. Sabah, worst case, now election, cannot submit. Everyone go to Sarawak, try to submit. But Sarawak cater for how many people? I don't know. Usually they're less than 100. Suddenly 5,000 cases want to go there. This is another area that I think the government should look into it. For our country to move on, we have to be friendly to foreign investment. Okay? Purely based on local, there's a limitation. That is from the residential market. Of course, when we ask about our real estate agent outside, after the MCO, the market are not too bad. A lot of booking, thanks to HOC and everything. But the difficult part is the loan. The bank guarantee rate of approval of loan is 25%. So out of 4 cases you submit, you only have 1 cases clear. Okay? So example, you have a block of condominium, 1,000 unit. Basically, you need to sell 4,000 times. So you got 25% approval rate. You keep on collecting booking and return, collecting booking and return. There's a bank rate. Okay? I think that is not healthy. We should go back to 50 plus, 60. That should be the cases. Okay? So this is on the residential side. I leave the rest later. Thanks.
Thank you, Kong Loong. Now can I invite Zerin? Maybe Zerin can start by telling us how many hotels are for sale now.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Tan Sri, for putting me on the spot. But yes, just to take away from where everyone left, with regards to the question, is the worst over or is it still in a crisis? I think the question we actually need to answer is how to thrive in this norm, right? I think that's the most important, and whether this is the new norm for now or forever, Saki, we don't know. But the question every one of us need to know is how do we thrive in this new norm? And the ones that change fastest are the ones that are going to succeed. As you can see, some of the bigger developers really surprised me. They were more nimble than I thought and actually managed to capitalize during the MCO, post the MCO, and are still thriving in the transactions. And likewise with the agencies as well. Agencies who handle the secondary market, as he said, some of them really thrived very well. And it's because how, lack of a better word, and since it's trending, how they pivoted very fast into the market. So I think that would be my situation now. It's just how to thrive. With regards to our comments on the commercial market, occupancies have been continuously dropping since 2018, right? From the high 70s, low 80s to mid 70s last year. And now it's dropped even further to the low 70s. Do I see it going lower? Yes, I think it will go as low to the mid 60s with the incoming supply coming in. And the future trend will not necessarily be reduction of office space, but I think catering for more square feet per person to give more physical distancing, to also cater for more collaboration space. Does work from home impact the usage of office space? Yes, I think it will impact. But like what Saki said, I think the collaboration space is very, very important. How the work from home is going to impact the real estate market is, I think you're going to see suburbs further from KL actually thrive better because people might only go to office twice a week, right? So I think quality of life is going to be a more important aspect in people's selection of residential real estate as we go forward. With regards, and also another trend that we are actually seeing in the commercial market is, of course, and in the retail market is the touchless system, where you can put your hands in your pocket and just walk through and everything's recognized, So the touchless system, I think, is something that we are seeing in the new office space scenario. When it comes to the retail market, I mean, I think it was a tough challenge for a lot of the retailers, retail asset owners. A lot of rebates were given, and I think it's recovery time now. But again, if you're unable to attract footfall to your market, to your place, it's going to be tough. If you see what some of the top malls are doing online, offline, and even through the retailers to attract footfall, that is the way to go, right? It's gone of the days of your standard A&P. It's not going to work anymore. I think you really need to work online and also via the retailers to attract footfall into the market. I agree with Stewart. I think the industrial market was probably top performing. Even during the MCO, we were transacting spaces, but as Stewart said, the minimum size we did was 12 acres and onwards. They're gone are the days of people coming and wanting to buy 3 acres, 1 acre. I think the demand is much bigger now. We were taking a fund to look at some distribution hubs and warehousing. And again, as what Dato Stewart said, height of the rackings. It's changed so much. Those days, all people wanted was access, and what was the turning circle for the trucks and the containers. But now it's so different. A distribution hub is truly a distribution hub, and I see that's the future. As far as Rawang, it's not necessarily just going to go towards Port Klang. I also see it moving northwards as well. With regards to the overhang, so surprise, Johor has 47% of the total units that's overhang, close to 50% of the value of the overhang in the service apartment sector. But everybody blames Forest City and Medini and Iskandar Putri. Actually, it's wrong. 9,000 units of that 12,000 units are actually in Johor city centre, right? Majelis Perbandaran Johor Bahru in JB. There's only 2,000 units of overhang in Iskandar Putri, right? So what I'm trying to say is, as much as there are a lot of these loud noises, I think there are also slivers of opportunities available in the market. What we have seen is the ultra high net worth individuals are coming into the market. They're already picking up for properties that they want now for them and for the future. I think it's a case where properties they could never get before are suddenly coming into the market, which are prime properties. With regards to the hospitality sector, very badly hit. We did advise a lot of our clients to close during the MCO as well. That it just no end to where it was coming. And some did. There's nothing wrong in closing, but I tell you what really took me by surprise, because I predicted the city hotels to do better first than the touristy locations. But all the touristy locations are doing very well. Penang is number one. Most hotels close 75 to 78% in the month of July and August. That's followed by the islands on the east coast, and then Langkawi, and then Sabah, Sarawak. So the tourist locations are doing very well. I think it's gradual opening of floors. Of course, last week, KL City Hotels did well also because your house no water, ma. So everybody headed up to the hotels. But city hotels are generally 30% shut, right? At least 30% of their inventory is shut. And their overall occupancy ranging between 5 to 30%. So city hotels are really, especially KL, city hotels are really doing bad. And I don't see recovery coming anytime unless the hotels themselves get together and start promoting Kuala Lumpur. I take a different view. I think it's time for us to create our own ecosystem. The government is too busy politicking, so we need to take care of our own industry. Really, if you see what Penang has done or what Langkawi has done together to attract the tourists, or even Redang, the hoteliers are very, very proactive, right? I think that's what needs to be done. And having the Great Malaysian Sale, even without Tourism Malaysia, is fine. We can do it, right? But we need to do it if you want to get it. And that's what I meant by how to thrive, Tan Sri. Thank you.
Thank you, Zerin, and the rest of the panel for those comments. We have about 25 minutes of Q&A. That's a lot of time. And I hope the floor will participate in this Q&A. I just to kick off the question, I just want to start with the residential sector, with Kok Loong's comment on two questions. One is, with the overhang of the residential units numbering almost 50,000 countrywide, do we expect a further worsening with the pandemic effect, or is there hope of solving this? Second question for discussion is, in August, KPKT made an announcement on the introduction of a vacancy tax aiming to reduce the overhang property numbers, but it was strongly objected by various stakeholders due to inappropriate timing and irrelevance to the actual problem. Later, it was announced that the proposal is on the back burner and will be studied further. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Okay. For the overhang, I think this is not a new issue because we can come up with the supply. Anyone have a land can go to local government and get approval. So the supply is unlimited. Whereas the demand, the real demand, we all don't know. We all based on our own guessing. I come up with different product, I will attract a buyer. I go with lower price, I will attract a buyer. So every developer think that way, so that we have constant supply. Okay. So at one stage, I even go to the minister. I say, it's good time for us to build then sell. Of course, the developer jump at me. Build and sell means that you ask us no need to continue. You ask us to close shop. Not really, If you look at the number of supply outside, we have to let the situation overcome it. We must make sure that the developer have the financial capability to continue and reduce the abandoned project. Of course, you ask me the answer whether the situation will be worsened or not, all depend on our planned supply. If we keep on continue with more supply, then the situation will get worse. So this one I can't answer you. Okay? Come back to the vacancy tax. I don't know. I think the objective of the government is to get revenue for their own department. Okay? So that's why they propose vacancy tax. Okay? But vacancy tax won't help. Okay? If your supply is continue like that, So for me personally, like just now I mentioned, we look at the vacancy rate first. Forget about the vacancy tax for now. Okay. Of course, the housing minister also make a U-turn and cancel the vacancy tax already. So I think it's not a topic for us to discuss for now until we come back again.
Tan Sri, may I add to that?
Yeah.
Most of the unsold units actually belong to the government agencies. So a lot of the PKNSs and whatever else, they have so much of unsold property. So at the end of the day, by taxing them, you can't just tax private developers. So I think it just don't make sense at all, because it is vacancy tax. The tax in other countries is all about making sure people rent out their premises and to bring down rents. That is the main crux of it. Then the other thing I want to add on is commenting on what Pravin mentioned. The resort hotels doing so well. Now tell me why. As soon as the state borders open, the resort hotels occupancy just shot up? Because people, you and me, are pent up sitting in the house, cannot take it anymore, fighting with the wife, fighting with the son and daughter, run away. And people ran away and they say, okay, let's go out for a holiday. I want to, just break away, And that is us human beings. So I believe a lot of these new changes will come back to what we naturally are. And when the country borders open, you will notice that the tourists coming in, and definitely these resort hotels and holiday will go. That means hotel values, all which is now coming down. We are in the midst of transacting a particular hotel at 2/3 of its market value at the moment. So, but I do believe, it's a city hotel, but I do believe that when borders open, these sort of hotels, the resort hotels are the ones that values are going to shoot back up again. So that's what I think.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of time. Can I ask any from the floor now for questions, for discussion? You can either ask questions or give your comments on any of the topics. That means they must have done very well.
Tan Sri,
Yeah.
if I may, on your questions on the your comments on the overhang.
Yeah.
I think if we look back at 98, 99, I think one of the few things I think FIAPSI, REDA, and the government that time did to have a similar campaign on the overhang. And one of the things that they really did, which helped the northern states, was the removal of the Bumi quota, right? That all the overhang under the Bumi classification were to be released. And I think that helped Kedah, Penang, and Ipoh release a lot of their stock into the market. I think that's something we really need to look at, and a dedicated campaign. I mean, HOC applies to everything, but I think a dedicated campaign just for the overhang.
Thank you. As a Bumiputra, I also agree with you that whilst, we can have this quota, Bumiputra quota, but there is so much that the Bumiputra can take. After a certain time, I think the government should let go of this quota, wherever it is, so that the market will improve. I don't know, is there any comments from the floor or any of the other panel members? No? Yeah.
Just like to add on what was said earlier, especially by C, regarding your questions about data. I think the big problem with the whole property industry is a lack of data. I know some people are trying to address it, but everyone works in silos here. There is no attempt to actually consolidate data. No one can tell, you can tell me what the vacancy rate is. We don't know. When developers build something, they don't build on data. They build on, I think it's going to work kind of thing. So it becomes ego, it becomes, gut feeling and all that stuff. But to really drive a business, it must be based on some solid evidence of demand. And that's completely lacking in this market. The important thing is the real estate industry has maybe 12 months now to get the act together and start getting all the players involved, all the actors in your business, from the valuers to the real estate agents to NAPEC, to sit down and start creating a super database that's accessible to every realtor in the country and every architect and every developer. Then only then can we start managing this stock. Otherwise, we'll be talking about this for the next 20 years and there will not be any resolution. Because if we can't make decisions based on data, then we can't make proper decisions anyway.
I agree with you. As far as I know, only NAPIC is involved in collecting this data. I think we should all together form an organization that will look into this data business, perhaps starting from the statistics department. And it must be done at every state level. At the moment, I think what NAPIC does is send out questionnaires, and they will, do the statistics. But these questionnaires are sometimes not answered or not being taken seriously by the industry. I think I agree with you. Is there any other?
Yeah, Tan Sri, I personally believe we do not have a supply problem. We have a demand problem. I think it's not a question of the oversupply of office space or oversupply of housing units. I think it's a problem is demand. When I say demand, I'm talking about household income, I'm talking about earning capacity. How much has wages gone up in 10 years? Not much. So that's the problem. The basic problem is the economy is not growing at the rate it should grow. Demand for offices. Why is there not new startups, new setups taking up more space? Because there is the economy is not growing at the rate it should grow. I think we have a demand problem.
Thank you. I see that there is a question from the floor. Yes, good lady.
Thank you. I'm Mizna from the Maldives High Commission. I would like to thank the panelists for their insightful discussions, first of all. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I think we can all agree that the property market has slowed down considerably due to the present crisis. When we speak of attracting more property buyers, especially foreigners, there are restrictions on the minimum threshold for the investments. For example, in the KL, previously the minimum was 1 million ringgits, and this year it was lowered to 600,000. But that's going to change soon, if I'm not wrong. My question is, I have two questions. My first question is, what are your views on such restrictions, and would you advocate for the removal of such restrictions to boost the market? My second question is, what impact would the cancellation of the MM2H program have on property investors? Since I believe one of the panelists said the MM2H program has been cancelled. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, yeah, that's residential, isn't it?
Yep. For the MM2H, if you don't have the MM2H, the foreigner buy Malaysia property, they have difficulty to stay here. If you buy a places that you cannot come over here and stay. You only can come over as a travel visa, only 30 days, 60 days. Are you going to live here? You can't. So you basically tell the investor, if I want to sell my unit to foreigner, practically there's no more except Singaporean, which they can come back and go in 60 days, example. So this is one area I think it affects a lot. Of course, you will say that there is other type of visa, business visa. Those are different requirements. Okay. In actual fact, Thailand have been doing a program which is very successful, attracted a lot of people. Our MM2H, in actual fact, nothing. If you basically compare, it's just a 10-year social entry visa. But in that aspect also, they want to cancel it. I don't understand, They are not going to be a PR, they are not going to be a citizen, no? They are only having a social entry visa only, It's just like your American visa, you can go there for next 10 years, Something like that only. So this is one part I really don't understand. Hopefully it's not because of politics.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Tan Sri, if I could. I think if we go back to data, foreign purchases, I think, amount less than 5% of the total property purchase. If you ask me, instead of fighting on this, I would rather focus on creating an ecosystem locally to encourage the local buyers into the system. I'm not saying no to foreign buyers, but I think we have to give up this thing that we can only survive with foreign buyers. Tan Sri, I was in Johor, and there are two parts of people in JB. One that say they cannot survive without Singapore, and the other one who have already innovated themselves and created their own ecosystem and are thriving, right? So I think it's a situation of two different things and how you want to expect it. But if it's purely on data driven, I don't think 5% buyers are going to impact the property market thoroughly. They are important, but I'm saying we need to look at how are we going to thrive now, right?
Thank you. What about...
Go back to the first question, you talk about threshold, right? I think whatever threshold the government want to set, please be consistent nationwide or whatever thing. Don't keep on changing now because the foreigner don't like, our Malaysia change again the policy. We also confused, not only them.
Thank you. Dato, what about industrial properties? Do we have any... Oh yeah, we'll go to the next question. The gentleman there.
Gentlemen, my name is Andrew. I'm from Sabah actually. I got a question here because we heard the minister say that we need affordable housing. But does any of the gentlemen above on the stage, do we really know how many, are we really short of affordable housing? In Sabah, we got Prima housing being cancelled, and a lot of Prima housing cannot even sell. So is it because of location or is it because of the product? So these are the things that I'm just wondering. And we are about to launch a project, and then the other problem is, the minister also mentioned that loan is an issue. And I think just now the gentleman, Mr. C, also said that only 25% approval rate. If this is going to continue, even we want to build more affordable housing, which we are trying to, 200,000, I think is affordable, right? But if they can't get a loan, how can we build also? So that is the issue that we need to, I think if this summit can help to solve one issue, the loan issue, that will be a great help for the whole industry, I think. Yeah, that's my comment. And the other thing is, for affordable housing, I think it should be different from the other type of housing in terms of, you see, in Sabah, our utility contribution is very high. To pay for SCSB connection or Tapanang I connection is very high. It's different from West Malaysia. West Malaysia, I think there is a standard rate for certain type of housing. But in Sabah, we have to guess, we have to guess how much to pay. And they don't give you a clear-cut answer for, let's say, for a housing below 250,000, how much we have to contribute. We don't know the answer. So as a developer, we had to really had to put a budget higher, then it will affect the price again. So these are the things that we are encountering. So thank you.
Thank you. My take on this affordable housing is, I think the answer is there are certain parts of the country where there is no problem at all. I mean, if you go to, but there are problems in big cities like Kuala Lumpur. I definitely say that there are not enough affordable housing within Kuala Lumpur and the surrounding area. But if you go to Kota Baru or Terengganu, I don't think affordable housing is a problem there, because almost everybody in Kelantan that I know of has a piece of land somewhere they can build their houses and so on. That there is no problem. As we all know, we started Prima, and with the greatest respect to Prima, when they started this, they didn't do enough study to find out exactly what is the requirement for each area as we term as affordable housing. That's my intake. And I think Prima, with the greatest respect to the government, has failed in its effort to provide enough so-called affordable housing. That's my intake. I don't know.
Sure.
Can you?
Andrew, nice to meet you. I think there's no answer to this affordable housing solution. If we go back to what Prima was supposed to be, I visited some of the Prima sites in Sandakan. I visited some of the Prima sites in Pahang. I think you got no house also, you don't want to buy there. They give free also, you won't want to stay there. Right? There is nothing there. So I think, and again, I think it was not data driven, right? And again, Tan Sri, as you said, with greatest respect, I think the intention was very good, But however, the implementation and what went through at some of the locations, I just think it just wasn't data driven. And as what Tan Sri said, you build Prima in Kota Baru, no use, right? I highly unlikely think that there would be takers. And if you see at what affordable housing is happening in Klang Valley, where it's really needed, they're building 60-story office tower, right? Instead of providing residential for the working population of KL. My only solution, I think, is what rent to own is, or what House Key is, what Maybank is doing, is probably the only solution. But I will go back to what Saki was saying on the economy not being good. Sorry, Saki, the economy is fantastic. Nowhere in the world you find two government-owned banks making 5.5B and 8.5B, but our tigers are dying in the jungles. So what we are having is capitalism without any social benefit, right? It's not sustainable. This capitalism is not sustainable, right? So it's the same, right? If that 5.5B, just 10% of that, Saki, went to a loan scheme that is very cheap, which is half a billion, I think we can sell a lot of affordable homes to the people at 1% loan. Why not? Right? Why should the developers only take the hit? Right? Thank you.
What's your answer, Saki?
Well,
Just a comment. questioning you.
What's your argument?
The thing is true. When you look at some of the land in the city, in KL city, the minute it's government land released to some agency or whatever, they all want to build high end and bring it all so expensive instead of focusing, like you said, on the poorer people. So that is as much as said, that is very true. That is the biggest problem here. But at the same time, whilst the economy is, you may say, is doing well, what is happening to wages? What is happening to businesses thriving, but the people who working are not getting what they should get.
Businesses should make less and give more to the staff.
That's what he called a socialist. Be careful.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will come after you.
Yeah.
No, I think the issue about affordable housing, and I've been thinking about it for quite some time. I think the word affordable housing is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. How do you sell a house to someone that has no money? If you look at the wages of the B40s, which is the big bulk of your population, you're targeting affordable housing too, they can't afford to buy. So what's this whole program about? There's no money. So when instead of talking about affordable housing, you should talk about affordable rents. Rent subsidies, where the government can step in and subsidize rents for these people who can then live in furnished apartments and have a quality life where they can pull themselves up into a higher wage bracket. When you're sitting in the gutter, you can never get out of it. So by this perpetual sort of bashing down of minimum wage, forcing people to work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week, just earn enough to keep alive, which is our model for industrialization here, by the way, which makes all the companies very rich, as you quite rightly say, but no money. So what are you trying to build anyway to talk about affordable housing? You can't. Anyone who says they can do affordable housing is just telling an outright lie. They will not be able, the people they're trying to target those units to will not be able to buy them. So there's zero market, zero demand. The only way governments can do that is to take the excess demand, subsidize the rent, put them into decent accommodation, and let them start to pick themselves up. You start at that point. So when they start earning more money, they may have an option to buy the unit or move out and find their own place. But you got to start looking and giving these people a start in life. You can't say, come go buy a house, get into debt. They'll default. Given. So this whole thing about affordable housing does not warrant even a debate. It needs a complete reset and go back to the drawing board.
Thank you. As a part-time politician,
Nancy, you are a full-time politician.
I'm not actually part-time. I've given up politics already. I think even in low cost, in affordable housing, we are interfered too much by the politicians. The trouble with this country, Malaysia as a whole, is that land is a state matter. So when a political party falls in one state, the policies that were done before is changed because of new politics. Now I don't know what's going to happen to Sabah or the rest of the country and so on. So I think that less people do this for politics and for the rakyat and concentrate on what the rakyat wants, the better it is for all of us. Don't you think? I think I better not speak too much.
I think we need,
because I'm only a part-time politician anyway. So can we have the next question? Ini orang Kelantan ya?
Yeah, you're Kelantan. Good evening to all my compatriots in the real estate industry. Two questions that I wanted to be answered today, though we have our own opinion. Is the worst over? I know we are in a crisis. Previn, you said we're going to thrive in the crisis. Is the worst over? Because somebody said earlier that there's going to be another challenge in September. So is it over? Number two, where is the property market heading? Nobody answered that question. I know, because we're all trying to avoid that answer. It'll be good for you all, so many of you in the industry, commercial, industrial, and residential, to tell us overall, where do you see the property market heading, say, into 2021? I can go back home and sleep well after that.
Okay, I'll answer that before you do that. The short answer is it depends on whether Trump is going to be re-elected or not. Yeah.
No, maybe all of us should give an opinion on this. I think it's a very good question, Soma. Is the worst over? My opinion is it's not, because there's too much of uncertainty out there, and we do not know what's going to happen, whether we're going to have another wave of COVID or whether a vaccine is going to be found. But I think, as far as my opinion, the worst is not over. Possibly moving on towards sometime next year, we might see the worst being over. When people start making decisions, then we might see the worst being over. What's the next question? Is it? Sorry? Where is the property market heading? My answer to that, nowhere. It's heading nowhere. It is very, very stagnant at the moment. But definitely, I think we will start to see movements when, again, I say, decisions are being made because everyone is KIVing their decisions.
Thank you. I think we'll have another one question from the floor. Oh yeah, you.
Soma, just to answer your question, I think the worst is not over. I think December, January, we're probably going to run through some turbulent times. But I'm a bit more optimistic after Chinese New Year, right? Where is the property market heading? I think it's going to be very sectoral and very locational based. As we mentioned, I think for now, when on the hospitality sector, I think the resort hotels are really thriving. I think it'll just be a couple of months before the city hotels get their act together, and I think we'll see that moving forward. In the office sector, I think it's going to be very flat. We're not going to see any increase in occupancy or rents for at least a year. In the industrial sector, I think there's going to be a lot of activity, but I don't see an increase in rents. I think the rents are very firm, very stable, good demand, but new products are definitely commanding a bigger demand. In the residential sector, I think it's locational based as well. I think some parts of KL, some parts of Penang, some parts of the East Coast are doing very well. But overall, I think it's just a rough ride, probably going to be very flat. But with transactions, I think there's going to be a drop in transactions this year for sure. I think year on year, for first quarter, we've already seen about 20% drop in transactions for first quarter 2020 compared to first quarter 2019. And I think that trend will carry on, and it'll carry on next year as well. I think there'll be a drop for next year as well in terms of transactions.
Thank you. As I said, one more. Yes.
Just some sharing from our sides as well. I mean, we don't deny on this property market is actually stagnant, but just a thought of like states, different states having different rulings in terms of course, the Bumiputra things. So why the property overhang also is happening in a way that as a developer, by the way, I'm from developer side as we sit here. So we actually have to hold the properties, especially for Bumiputras, until the CCC. We only can apply for the first stage, 50% of construction has been done. Thereafter, we have to go for another application at the stage of construction of 75%. And two more stage is, upon CCC, we allowed another release to apply. So the last stage, 6 months after CCC, we have to do the final application. So we can see here why the property overhang is happening. It's not that developers not selling the properties. When there's a lot of policies being imposed by this state, especially, I'm not sure, Selangor states have these issues. Johor states, they go by quota, by units. Even though Selangor just... So, in a way, for developers, we are having these talks, even after 6 months after CCC. So, I hope this is one of the things that we want to share why the property overhangs happening.
My answer to that is, A, as I said unfortunately in this country, land is a state matter. So the solution to that is, ladies and gentlemen, come to the general election, all of us vote for one party so that we want one law.
Two-thirds.
Ni sekarang
Amend
ni
the
kita ada what? 50 parties or something?
Yeah.
So that actually it is true. The Ministry of Housing can only advise. It is up to the state excos to decide themselves. So PAS, we have one problem in Kelantan. UMNO will have another problem in Johor. DAP may have one problem in Penang, that sort of thing. So this, I'm afraid, is there to stay. This land is a state matter. We cannot, unless we change the constitution.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay? I think that's it. Let me just wrap up by saying first, one more question. Okay, one last question. We have to give a chance to the organizers to get ready for the next session. Yeah. Where is the... Tan Sri Majid himself.
I would like to pose this question to all of them up there. They are professionals and all that. They know the market better than everybody else. Do you see a destruction in the value of all the property assets in the foreseeable future? You say there are limited transactions, but nobody tell me whether the value has dropped by 10%, 15%, 20%, what is it? How do you see the value of the asset in the next 12 months or so?
I can give you the statistics for 2019 and the first quarter of 2020. In terms of number of transactions, the percentage of drop is about 14%. In terms of value, the percentage of drop is about 18%. That is the statistics. But as to how it will go further, we'll have to look at the crystal ball. Nobody can tell.
Maybe I add on, and I do agree with Praveen when he says very, very sectoral and locational. The thing is, because our interest rates are coming down, the yields that were prevalent for the commercial real estate at least are holding on. They are not under pressure to go up, because when yields go up, values come down. Yeah, sellers definitely are trying to hold on to their assets, and buyers want to buy at a greater discount. But therefore, there is tremendous pressure on yields to go up, but it is being held by the fact that interest rates are coming down, so the cost of funds are cheaper, and that's why yield is still holding on. But in terms of the values, certainly, commercial real estate values will drop, certainly for sure, especially like in the office sector. Industrial will hold steadily because industrial is still doing well. In fact, industrial values have actually gone up. I see the kind of land prices where people are paying just to build some logistic warehousing. The prices are actually holding steady and going up. Residential, on the other hand, with the pressure, I think the residential house pricing, as far as I've seen how developers even price it, it hasn't been priced upwards. It's just holding there.
Thank you very much. I think we've just got another 5 minutes. Give me a chance to just wrap up the session for 2 minutes and give the organizers a chance to introduce the next session. Overall, I would say that residentially, we have to live with the fact that there are still 50,000 housing units or residential units overhang. And part of the problem, as has been pointed out, part of the problem is this business of Bhumiputra, vacancies. On the office sector, I think vacancy rates will continue because people are now starting to work in the office, at home and so on, which is the new norm now. On the hotel side, Zerin says, and I agree, I think everybody agrees, that the Langkawis, the Penangs of the world are improving, the hotels there, and slowly but surely even the hotels in the cities are now improving. And I think the best performing still is the industrial sector. Dato, people are still investing, and including people from overseas. So with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my learned panelists, Dato, Saki, Loong, and Zerin, for sharing your knowledge and experience with all of us here. And thank you again for all your presence. Thank you very much.